It was a late night in Tokyo, and I had just finished a long day of work. The train was nearly empty, the only sound being the occasional screech of the tracks beneath. I sat near the door, trying to ignore the overwhelming sense of unease that settled over me. That's when I saw her, a woman in a traditional kimono, sitting across from me. Her face was expressionless, her eyes locked on nothing. I tried to ignore her, thinking I was just imagining things. But something about the stillness of her presence made it impossible to look away. As the train moved deeper into the tunnels, the temperature dropped suddenly. I shivered and glanced at the woman again. She hadn't moved an inch, but there was something wrong. The air felt thick, as though something was pushing against my chest. I wanted to speak to her, to ask if she was okay, but my mouth went dry. The train rumbled on, and as we neared my stop, I watched her stand up. She walked toward the door, and I thought maybe, finally, she would speak or acknowledge me. But as the doors closed, the woman vanishes into thin air. No one ever saw her again. I don't know if it was a ghost, but the air felt colder, and the dread lasted long after I left the station. The London Underground is infamous for its dark tunnels and centuries-old tracks. But one night, something happened that I'll never forget. I was waiting for the Bakerloo line, alone, past midnight. The station was eerily quiet, and the occasional flickering of the lights was the only movement. That's when it happened. A train appeared from the far end of the tunnel, but there was something wrong. The lights on the train were flickering, and it moved too smoothly. It was almost like it was gliding toward us, not stopping at the station as it should. The doors opened, but no one was inside. The interior was dark, pitch black even. No sign of passengers. I felt this odd compulsion, like I needed to get on, so I stepped forward. But just as I was about to enter, the doors slammed shut. The train surged forward into the darkness. I froze, my heart racing. The other passengers around me stared, wide-eyed, and not a word was spoken as we all realized what we'd just seen. Some say the train was involved in an accident years ago, and now it haunts the line, its empty carriages lost in time. The New York City subway is chaotic, loud, and never quiet. But one night, I experienced something that left me with a chill I still can't shake. I was waiting for the train on the 4 line, late, much later than usual. The platform was mostly empty, and I was just trying to make it home. That's when I saw him. A man, dressed in ragged clothes, standing at the end of the platform. His face was gaunt, pale, with hollow eyes, and his stare, it felt like he could see straight through me. I thought I was imagining it. After all, the subway can play tricks on your mind. As the train sped through the tunnel, I saw him step forward, right into the path of the oncoming train. But when the train passed, there was no sign of him. I ran to the edge, terrified. There was no body, no trace of the man who had been there just moments before. It was as if he had never existed. But I knew what I had seen, and I couldn't shake the feeling that he was still watching, somewhere in the dark. Seoul's subway system is one of the busiest in the world. But there's a line 4, that I'll never forget. It was early in the morning, just before dawn. I was on my way home, exhausted, barely awake. The train was almost empty, save for a few tired commuters. That's when I saw her. A woman in a white dress, her long black hair covering her face. She was sitting at the far end of the car, staring blankly into space. I tried not to look, but there was something about her presence that made my skin crawl. I glanced away for a moment, and when I looked back, she was standing. Slowly, she began to move toward me. Her steps were unnaturally slow, dragging on the floor. I froze, my heart pounding. She stopped just inches away from me, her face still hidden beneath the black strands of hair. And then she smiled, a twisted, grotesque smile. Before I could even react, the train screeched to a halt. The woman was gone. I've never ridden Line 4 alone since. Locals say she's the spirit of a woman who died on the tracks, a soul forever trapped, seeking to take more with her.